Atari Inc. Decline, Part 2. Welcome to Eric C. Productions. If this is your first time watching one of my videos, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you get notified of my latest video that are posted during the week. Please leave a suggestion or a comment, and maybe you might see that video in a future posting. Thanks for watching, and now back to the decline of Atari.
Atari just reinvented the video game with this, the Atari 7800.
Incredible, huh? So powerful it plays like the best arcade game with real joysticks, right? So advanced it plays super games, computer games no other video game system ever played. Just look at these.
It even plays all Atari 2600 games.
Great, huh? Hey. Oh, the new Atari 7800. We reinvented the video game.
Are you sure?
The film, E.T. the Extraterrestrial, was released in June of 1982. Atari was able to quickly negotiate a license estimated to have cost Atari $20 to $25 million to make a video game based on the film. The game was programmed by Howard Scott Warshaw, who was given 5 weeks to produce the game for the 1982 holiday season. Distributors had already canceled orders. This and other games started to stockpile in Atari's warehouses without any sellers. Neither game sold as much as Atari had expected, notably E.T., which was critically panned and later became known as one of the worst games ever made. And of the 5 million copies produced, only 1.5 million were actually sold. Atari's financial trouble continued into the first quarter of 1983 with an operating loss of $45.6 million compared to an operating profit of $100 million in the same quarter in 1982. Atari was still struggling with excess inventory of its Atari 2600 games as consumers had become weary of the quality of Atari games as a result of Pac-Man and E.T., and the Atari 5200 had not been as successful as the 2600. So did Atari discount the excess unsold video games to companies like Big Lots or Ross or even the 99-cent store? It was deemed an urban legend. Reports from 1983 stated that as a result of overproduction and returns, millions of unsold cartridges were secretly buried in the Alamogordo, New Mexico landfill and covered with a layer of concrete. In April of 2014, diggers hired to investigate the claim confirmed that the Alamogordo landfill contained many ET cartridges among other games. James Heller, the former Atari manager who was in charge of the burial, was at the excavation and admitted to the Associated Press that 728,000 cartridges of various games, not just ET, were buried. 1,300 cartridges were recovered, but only 10% of them were actually ET games. Atari had gained a poor reputation in the industry. Despite losses, Atari remained the #1 console maker in every market except Japan. Nintendo, a Japanese video game company, planned to release its first programmable video game console, the Famicom, later rebranded as Nintendo Entertainment System, in Japan in July of 1983. Looking to sell the console in an international market that same year, Nintendo offered a licensing deal, whereas Atari would build and sell the system, paying Nintendo a royalty. The deal was in the works throughout 1983, and the two companies had decided to sign the agreement at the June 1983 Consumer Electronics Show. However, Coleco demonstrated its new Atom computer with Nintendo's Donkey Kong. Casar was furious, as Atari owned the rights to publish Donkey Kong for computers, which he accused Nintendo of violating. Nintendo, in turn, criticized Coleco, who owned the console rights to the game. Coleco had legal grounds to challenge the claim, though, since Atari had only purchased the floppy rights to the game, while the Atom version was cartridge-based. Casar eventually resigned as CEO of Atari in July of 1983 over mounting financial losses, and Warner replaced him with James J. Morgan. Negotiations became protracted after Kassar's departure in mid-1983, and with any deal unlikely to be realized before year-end sales, Nintendo dropped out. Instead, Nintendo worked through their Nintendo of America subsidiary to release a system on their own in 1985. Let's just say Nintendo's success was Atari's loss. Morgan implemented processes to reduce operating costs at Atari, including laying off 3,000 jobs and moving 4,000 more manufacturing positions to Asia. Atari's financial problems continued throughout the rest of 1983, with second quarter losses of $310 million. Atari's problems reverberated across the entire video game industry in the United States as consumer confidence in video games had weakened significantly, contributing significantly to the video game crash of 1983. Retailers became wary of selling video games, making it difficult for console and video game manufacturers to sell their products. Further, the rising popularity of home computers drove sales away from game consoles. Clear stock as to make way to new games, retailers also heavily discounted consoles and games, which also hurt these companies financially. Many of the new companies that had sprung up to take advantage of the rising growth of video games prior to 1983 shut down, liquidating their assets and further contributing to the excess unsold stock. Established companies like Atari faced difficulty in selling their products against these volumes, which further contributed to their losses. By the end of 1983, Atari reported a total loss for the year of $538 million compared to the $1.7 billion operating profit in 1982. Any remnants of the home video game business in America all but disappeared. In 1984, Mattel sold off its electronics division. Aaron Greenberg folded Coleco. Ray Kassar's successor, Jim Morgan, came from Philip Morris, where his background was marketing cigarettes. This experience hardly prepared him for the video game business. He bragged to employees that his 7-year, multi-million-dollar contract gave him freedom to run the company any way he saw fit. With Atari's massive losses, games that were meant to be priced at $40 were selling for $4. Morgan consolidated Atari's 40 offices around Silicon Valley to about 28 and killed all but 9 of Atari's new development projects. He let go a quarter of the company's employees, but the costs were too little too late. Steve Ross, whom Morgan once called the best man with numbers I have ever seen, had had enough. Atari was taken away from Morgan on July 6, 1984. He was never told that Steve Ross had decided to break up Atari and sell its pieces. Atari's hardware divisions, the video game systems and computers, were sold to Jack Tramiel, founder of Commodore Business Machines, for $240 million in notes. Warner retained 25% of the company. Tramiel believed that his new company, called Atari Corporation, could go up against Apple and Commodore. Tramiel had no interest in the coin-op business. Warner sold it to Masaya Nakamura, and Atari Games became a subsidiary of Namco. Under the agreement, Atari Games could do anything except make hardware or software that competed with Tramiel's Atari Corporation under the Atari name. I look at it sadly, Nolan Bushnell says, surveying the devastation of the company he founded. You can't help but have a certain feeling for a name that you chose out of the universe. He adds, see, Atari could have been Nintendo and Apple under one roof. Hey, you just watched my video. Thanks for watching. Hit that like button and please subscribe to Eric C. Productions.